My name is Bland Cooper. I'm a competitions agronomist with the PGA Tour. That involves working with the host sites, specifically the golf course superintendents and club officials if need be, or ownership, in making sure that the golf is prepared, or the preparation of the golf course, the conditions are conducive to what our players expect from professional competition. Well, here in the Southeast, which is primarily what we're talking about, so far the last 4 years or so, we've seen, of course, East Lake Golf Club, where we play the Tour Championship presented by Coca-Cola, was probably the most renowned golf course that we've had in our tournament portfolio that has made that conversion from bent to Bermuda grass. And I would say right now, this revolution, as we're talking about, that's taking place, we're beginning to see other potentials or the sites potentially going to Bermuda grass so that they can provide the conditions that we're looking for our events. It's also important to understand that while it may seem that we are all about the tournament and don't care about the other 51 weeks out of the year, for a golf course, at least one that's hosting a PGA Tour event, for a golf course to make that commitment to convert from bent to Bermuda grass, it has to be a win-win for the membership as well. We want that membership to enjoy those greens for more months out of the year than they would maybe under their current bent grass grassing program. So it has to be the win-win. It just can't be about the event. Having said that, if you go through and look at our calendar, our current schedule, you'll see which events are played in the Southeast on bent grass greens in the months of, let's say, August and into September. And those would be the places I would look first at maybe having an idea who is looking at converting. Ultimately, it is the decision of the club. We can only make recommendations and hopefully provide them enough guidance to where they have the information they need to make a good decision. Well, I think it's really a fairly basic process that any club needs to go through to be able to decide whether Bermuda grass is the right decision for them. What I mean by that is that if you take it in its simplest form and look when you're playing the majority of your rounds, and then you take just a simple week-by-week calendar and look at when bent grass is going to be superior to Bermuda grass and vice versa. Add up the number of rounds, look at that you play every week, look when your tournament schedule is, your member guests, club championships, those type of things, and then look at which grass is superior for the majority of those weeks. Assuming that some other factors are in place, i.e. you own your shade, and that seems to be the most predominant one, then making that conversion, if in fact Bermuda grass is superior during the time of the year when you're playing the bulk of your play, is the logical choice in my opinion. I can tell you that by and large our players have, as I said earlier, have really developed an affinity for these Bermuda grasses. They really enjoy playing on them when they're maintained properly, which is the case in just about every site we go and play Bermuda grass. As I mentioned earlier, the consistency from the beginning of the day to the end of the day with speed, the ability to achieve firmness and to maintain that grass as close to the edge as possible without falling over the edge for a longer period of time, in this region at least, our players appreciate that. And like I said earlier, the guy who's putting out at 7:10 in the afternoon after 155 players have walked across those greens is very happy with Bermuda grass because the spike marks aren't nearly as prevalent as, say, what would be on a bent grass green, certainly in the presence of untimely weather. Both grasses require a tremendous amount of input. One maybe more so on the fungicide side of things, and one maybe more of intense mowing practices during certain times of the year. They all require, no matter what you're growing, what type of variety of Bermuda grass or variety of bent grass, you have to have sound agronomic principles. And that starts obviously with a healthy root system. You have to maintain sand as the dominant component of the upper matrix, no matter what grass you're growing. If not, you're just not going to have a healthy turf, whether it's Bent or Bermuda grass. And we've seen that. We've seen, for as good as Bermuda grasses are, we have experienced places where it needed to take an additional step or two to get to where it needed to be in terms of maybe organic matter management or texture management, those type of things. But it's certainly when you look at the times of year when bent grass is actively growing and when you can be aggressive with it versus Bermuda grass, it's obviously different times of year, different months. But still, the intensity with Bermuda grass in terms of mowing and those type of things, it's very high in order to maintain a very good putting surface. I think that the differences in Mini Verde and Champion and Tiff Eagle, I have opinions on that from what I've seen. I'm sure if you poll a number of people, you might get different answers. I think each of these grasses, when maintained properly, can provide exceptional putting surfaces. In my opinion, I feel like Champion probably needs a little more input, at least from the grooming, brushing and grooming side, than say Mini Verde or Tiff Eagle. But once, and it's not unlike old Pencross bent grass and some of the new A's. If Pencross is managed properly, it's a phenomenal putting surface. Some of the best putting surfaces we've played on were Pencross greens. But again, it goes back to management. There are differences in these three Bermuda grasses, anybody will tell you, and each of them have their advantages and disadvantages per se. However, they all, when managed properly, can provide outstanding putting surfaces. Well, in talking with our counterparts at the USGA Green section, Pat O'Brien and Chris Hartwigger, they are probably more in tune to that than I am. But in speaking with them, and also speaking with superintendents from the region that I've regressed in for a number of years, it's hard to put a percentage on it, but I would be willing to say within the next 5 years, at least in the I-85 corridor region and slightly north of that you're going to see well more than half the golf courses that currently have bent grass will have converted to Bermuda grass, in my opinion. The biggest factor there is the shade. If you own your shade and can control your shade, then you can grow this grass. The tools are there to do it. As a golf course superintendent, I grew bent grass, and I prided myself on bent grass and kind of made a name for myself, if you will, growing bent grass. If I was to get back into grass growing in the southeast in that region again, I would not grow bent grass. I would want Bermuda grass. Managing bent grass throughout the region we're speaking of right now has driven a lot of very good minds away from this business. It's so engrossing, so enveloping of your time during that 90 or 100 days in the summertime. That's all you think about. And once you have a family that you have to support, it's very difficult to sleep at night when you know that one bad day could put you on the unemployment line, and it could be no fault of your own. Now, it's not to say that Bermuda grass you can't have turf laws with Bermuda grass. There are issues with Bermuda grass that you have to contend with. However, having that peace of mind that you know that the plant is not in an environment where it's dying, because bent grass in the summertime, as we know, the roots are doing this all summer long. To have that peace of mind to go home, as Sheila said at 3 o'clock, boy, that's priceless. I think the Mini Verde, when you look at the trials, the rooting depth has is more times than not a little deeper than some of the other Ultradwarfs. This is a very important factor when facilities are considering, or the facilities have, say, nematode pressure. As we know, nematode is a plant parasite that feeds on root hairs and roots. And if you have a plant that inherently produces more root mass, then the threshold of nematode populations can be a little greater than in other less densely or deeply rooted cultivars. And I think Dr. Billy Croat, University of Florida, has started to look at some varietal thresholds within the Bermuda grass family, if you will. The color of Mini Verde, the funny thing is about turf grass is that we very seldom let a turf grass exhibit its natural color. We're always influencing it some way or another with fertility inputs and those type of things. But having said that, you can turn Mini Verde, if you will, whatever color of green you want it. If you want it to be a darker green, just like with most grasses, you can apply more iron or more sulfates, those type of things. But the Mini Verde, I know that it's been in at TPC Sawgrass, which is where we play the Players Championship, and also at East Lake Golf Club in Atlanta, Georgia, that I referenced earlier. And our players overwhelmingly rate those sets of greens very, very high with respect to the rest of our sites throughout the year. East Lake is always in the top couple of percentage points there in terms of playing characteristics from our players. So there's a lot about the grass. Also, there's a lot about Ralph Keppel and his team and what they do there at East Lake. But it's turned out to be a phenomenal grass there. And our players, as I said earlier, they really enjoy playing on it.